All right, so I have to decide, am I dividing by imaginary or am I dividing by complex? Imaginary. If I'm dividing by imaginary, then I multiply the top and the bottom by I. Just I. Just I. So this becomes 28I minus 8I squared, because of course it does distribute, divided by 4I squared. All my I squareds do what? -1 changes the sign of the number, so this becomes plus 8. This becomes -4. So I have 8 plus 28I. I want to make sure I stay in standard form, divided by -4. Now, some of you may have simplified this further. Did anyone simplify this further? What did you do? I got divided by 4. You could divide everything by 4, but if you do it, it has to be everything, and I would do -4. -2 minus 7. That's the answer. -4. Yeah, it's just not standard form, but yeah. Yes. If you kept it here for right now, I'm okay. Eventually you'll get to where we have to do it like this, but for right now. Yes, but you would have more simplification to do. Yes. So when you multiply top and bottom by I, it has to distribute to everything. You have to multiply everything in the top by I, not just that last one. So if you're going to simplify, you have to divide everything by that common factor, whatever it reduces by. So I could divide everybody by 4, -4 actually. 18. Ooh. Different situation, right? Because I'm dividing by what? Complex. So this is different because I have to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate. That's right, Ellen. Conjugate. By the conjugate. What is the conjugate, Miguel? 6 minus what? 2I. If I do it to the bottom, I better do it to the top. Now I'm in a distribute situation. So I have 30I over this becomes plus 10. This becomes, these are gone, right? Which is what should happen. The whole point of conjugates is that I cancels, this radicals cancel. So now let's just write it in nice standard form. 10 plus 30I over 40. Looks like I could divide everybody by 10 if I wanted to, right? Drop a 0 off everybody. Yes. It's just pretty, it's standard form, but it doesn't have to be. It's not wrong if you don't. What else? 6. You don't have to, no. You'll have to eventually. Right now, if you can just get to that, it's fine. All right, 6 has got a negative I outside, and then I've got -2 plus 10I. Distribute 2I minus 10I squared. That I squared is what's changing the sign of my number, so what does that become? Positive 10. I'm just going to rewrite it in order in standard form here, and I'm good. don't have to. It's pretty math, but you don't have to. Are you watching that movie again? Okay, well. Don't watch it now. My gosh. Okay, what else can you come on? Yes, ma'am. 11? Sure. All right, let's FOIL or distribute. I got 64 minus 8i plus 8i minus I squared. All right, what does this one become? Negative I squared, positive 1. Combine your whole numbers, your real numbers. So I got 65, and the i's cancel. 19. Not only can I do it, Sullivan, I will do it just for you. 19. 7 plus 3i over 2 plus I. Complex number in the bottom means that I need to multiply by the conjugate, top and bottom. What's the conjugate here? 2 minus I, 2 minus I. I should really do it like this so it's nice and proper. Gross, lots of multiplying, but here we go. 14f minus 7i plus 6i. I'm running through these a little bit faster. Miguel said E, I said F, and then I kept going. 4. You don't have to do the middle if you know, but just so you can see. Minus I squared. I'm going to go ahead and change all of my I squareds because I don't like to rewrite it a second time. This becomes positive 1, middles cancel. Now I'm ready to clean up. 14 and 3. Thank you. Negative 7i and 6i. Negative I. 4 and 1. That's where you'll mess up if you mess up anywhere else. 20. Did you not like the ones that had the complex on the top and the bottom? Or you... All right, top and bottom, I need 2 plus 4i. So up top, 2 plus 4i plus 16i, 32i squared. 4, these are going to cancel. Minus 32 plus 16. 2 and negative 32 would give me negative 30 plus 20i over 20. Again, I could probably take a 10 from everybody or divide everybody by 10. So negative 3 plus 2i over. I'm dividing by an imaginary number, so I'm going to multiply by I instead of by the complex. So up top, I get negative 8i minus 2i squared over 6i squared plus 2 minus 6. So I get 2 minus 8i over negative 6. I can simplify that if I want to. 1 minus 4i over negative 3, or you could leave it like that, or you could have divided by negative. Record that one, that's number 14. Dozier is being super Aggie and wants number 13 as well. 10 over 2i. I top and bottom, 10i over 2i squared, which is n over negative 2 and I over negative 2, which is negative 5i. Okay. Biggest stinking problem, y'all. What the heck? If you have something like this, I don't know. How do you solve that? Divide. There's one x in here. Only one x. That tells me I need to SAD map it. Right? All you had to do here and then just move the one over. There is nothing wrong with leaving it written just like that. It's an exact answer. Okay. If you tried to multiply that out, you would have gotten yourself into a pretty sticky situation. Yeah. Can't square the parentheses unless you did this. You multiply that. That is not the same as that. You can't distribute that squared. Is that what you're saying? You have to do you can only distribute it if you're multiplying inside. If you ever add or subtract, it's a FOIL problem. Y'all look pained right now. And then FOILed it out, that's fine. But you won't get, watch what happens. X plus 1 is x squared plus 1x plus 1x plus 1, which is x squared plus 2x plus 1. If you just distributed that squared through, you would get x squared plus 1, which is not the same. I think there were a lot of oops on this quiz as I look. Remember, we finally did stuff that's new to you, so make sure you're going back and looking at that stuff as we go through and not just sitting and listening to the notes and then not looking at it, because things get harder. And then we start building. You'll see that what we do today uses all of this stuff in the new notes. Probably tomorrow. I'm already a quarter of the way through them. All right. Take a break, go to the bathroom. If you didn't do so well, it's okay. Shake it off, because remember, listening ears. Are they on? Are you thinking caps tight? I could not be an elementary teacher. Okay. Remember. No. All right. Thank you, Wyatt. What? That was awful strong. Remember when I told you? Remember I told you that there was this special pattern, this perfect square trinomial, and it would benefit you to learn it then, but you didn't necessarily have to. You could group, but there'd come a point in time where you'd have to be able to do perfect square trinomial. Remember that? Welcome to that time. All right. Okay, just to refresh your memory. This is the one where the ends are perfect squares. Second sign is plus. The middle sign, can be plus or minus, but you take the square roots of the ends, multiply and double. The square dance. It's square dances. Make it square dances. And the reason perfect square trinomials are nice is because they factor so very nicely. You do the square root of the first. Whatever that first sign is, the square root of the last, and you put the squared on the outside. So this helped us when we factored. And this helped us when we factored and solved. Now it's going to help us as we complete the square. Okay? Yeah. All right, Miguel, leave her alone. You're just being aggravating right now. All right. Let me.
Oh, I can't get my food card. I'm having a dilemma. I can't get my pencil to work.
Oh, don't write that.
There's lead in there. I want her.
Sorry. All right. Here we go. I want you to take a look at this one. It does not equal 0. It does not equal 0, but it is special. Okay? If you notice the left side of the equation, why is it special? It's a perfect square trinomial.
And the right also.
The right's a perfect square. Don't look at that right now. Right now, I want you to look at the left side and recognize that that is a perfect square trinomial. Yes? Okay. So if I factored the left side, what would it look like? X plus 7 squared. Now, why is this an easy solve for me now? What y'all didn't do on your quiz is what we're going to do here. So now we're going to solve with square roots. So we take, I wasn't trying to fire shots, right? I'm sorry. Okay. The point is here, when we're in a form like this, it's an easy solve because I can SAD map it. Okay. This is that perfect square trinomial. This is that. Okay. If the ends are perfect squares, can you multiply something by itself to get x squared? X. Can you multiply something to get 49? Is the second sign a plus? Is the middle term double the product of the square roots of the end? Okay, then yes, it's a perfect square trinomial, and it factors very easily. Okay. From here, what's the square root of 4? That's half the answer. Plus or minus 2, right? We took a square root. We got to have the positive and the negative root there. So we got plus or minus f. We got plus or minus 2 equals x plus 7. Yes? Now get x by itself. Thank you for that. Ooh. Explain to them why it's not just, golly, jeez. Why it's not just -5. That's exactly right. Good job. There are my 2 solutions. Plus or minus 2 means positive 2 minus 7 and negative 2 minus 7. Bless you. So that means this quadratic is crossing the x-axis at -5 and -9. I gotta pick up both solutions. Now, technically, this is old. We've already done this. We've already factored and solved. Here's the new stuff. What we're gonna do today, guys, is this won't be there. We'll have to find that. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. Oh, it won't be that easy. Let me ask you this. Look at this one. Divided by 2 is exactly x. What would I need to put in that blank in order to make sure that that is a perfect square trinomial? How are you doing that? Because you take off the x and then divide the 6 by 2. Isn't that easy? No, I don't. How are you figuring that out? Emma needs help. What are we doing? No, I didn't mean to bring you out. Right. You're exactly right. I'm going to call this a good C, because a good C is going to allow me to have a perfect square trinomial. So to find a good C, tell them again what you did, Sullivan. You took the B that's in the middle, half, not by 2, by itself. So to find a good C, okay, and I'm going to make sure I don't have a leading coefficient, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to take half of the middle term and square it to find out what needs to go on there. Okay? Half the battle is finding the good C. No decimal. There's no way? Come on, Wyatt. There's no way. I gave you a formula.
Wait a second.
No decimals. You're almost there. Oh. What'd you say? What'd you do? You keep it as a fraction and square it. You just didn't square it. That's the only thing you didn't do. My good C here would be take the B, divide by 2, and square it. Oh, 4, I'm sorry. Getting excited. 4, sorry. Yeah, this is fun stuff. I love math. What is that supposed to mean? I was a nerd. Another tricky one? Ooh, how tricky do you want it, Sullivan?
Without it being out of the template. Wait a second.
Don't blurt it out when you get it. Look at it for a second. I will give you a hint if you're struggling a little bit. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by what? A half. Half a fraction. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. This is just because Sullivan asked for a difficult one. It won't get any harder than this right now. It won't even be this hard today. My good C is going to be B divided by 2, but I don't want to divide and then squared. I don't want to divide a fraction, right? So instead of dividing a fraction, I multiply by the reciprocal. Yes. 2 over 6. What'd you get? Which is? Whoa. Not that hard now. Okay. I'm not going to give you quite as tricky one this time. 9 would be that. What if it equaled 20? Here's what I want you to recognize here. I want you to recognize that we call this an already completed square because this side already makes a perfect square trinomial. And that's what when we're completing the square, we're going to have an equation where this is going to be a bad C, and we'll have to find the C that completes the square, completes the perfect square trinomial. Okay? So that then finding the good C, so that then we could just factor it and solve it. That's the point. I want you to understand the point before we actually do it. Okay? All right, I think we jump in and do it. I'm going to try to give you some steps as we go through this. Okay, the first one will take us a little while to dig through, but after that, it won't take quite as long. We're going to use that for the lesson. Okay, here's my dilemma. My directions say to solve by completing the square. My very first thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to tell you to do this every single time because it's going to make your life a lot easier, is to always, always divide by A if A is not 1. Okay? In other words, I don't want a leading coefficient whenever I go to solve it. So here, and here's where things start getting sticky if everything's not divisible by the leading coefficient. A lot of times, probably 75% of the time, you don't have a leading coefficient to worry about to start with. But if you do, and I did an example that does have one, just so you could see, then I want to divide everything by A. And when I say everything, I mean everything, both sides of the equation. Okay? Every single piece gets divided by that leading coefficient. So I have x squared minus 8x. Skip some space here, okay? Leave space for a good C. Negative 15. Okay. This one is set up a little bit differently. If you have a C, check it. All right. So if this were on this side, maybe it looked like this. I would need to check it. I'm checking to see if that's a good C or a bad C. What do I mean by good C and bad C? A good C means it's a perfect square trinomial as it sits, everything's fine. If that's the case, go ahead and factor this all. I was just saying if it is over there. Check to see if you have a C. If you have a C, check it. If it's a bad C, you move it and go on to the next step. Move it where? Move it to the other side and don't worry about it right now. Is it what? I don't know the answer right off. Have you already solved it? Okay, so I'm back where I was. I have to put every step in there so that it'll work for every example you do, even though it doesn't apply to all of these. Do I? No, it's just not there right now. It's 0 if it's not there, because you're adding. C was 0. This C would be 0 to start with. Yes, yeah. You'd bring the 1 over because it wouldn't work. So if this was like this, you'd go, oh, that's a bad C. I'm going to move it over. Because 15 is not a good C. If I brought 15 over, I'm still not. Remember, my goal is a perfect square trinomial. But you can't just put a 1 there because you want to. It didn't have a 1 to start with. Okay. Find a good C. How do I find a good C? Take B, half of that, and square it. When you find a good C, you're going to add it to both sides. Because it's an equation, I have to stay balanced. So if I put it to one side, I also have to put it to the other. So in the case of this example, what's my good C? Okay, so we took 8, or negative 8, doesn't matter, cut it in half and squared it, and we got 16. That's going to go here and here. just to keep my equation balanced. Are y'all following me? Now this looks like what we started with. Now all I have left to do is to factor and solve. It's a perfect square trinomial, so how does it factor? Close. Minus 4 squared. Remember, that's that perfect square trinomial. I did all this so that it would square dance. What times itself twice is x squared? What times itself twice is 16? And then the middle sign. That'll work every single time you follow these step-by-step instructions. The first sign. Now what do you do? How do you solve that? Square root. If you're a little bit confused with the first example, it's okay. As we run through another example, this I've been writing steps and explaining as we go. I think it'll make a little more sense. What's the square root of 1? 4 plus or minus. That's right. Plus or minus 1. Now I move the 4. 4 plus or minus 1 means one solution is 5. The other solution is 3. 4 plus 1 or 4 minus 1?
Oh. I did.
Let's run through another one. This is hard. I told y'all this was hard. I think to me, oh, we're still gonna do it. Doesn't work. What doesn't work about it? It's not even a perfect square. If it's not a perfect square, don't even go any further. Don't even, I mean, just, ugh. All right, see, no. It is CBF, that's why we're completing the square. We're going to make it F. You won't have any of it. You can always complete the square. It's one method that always works, messy as it is. So I'm going to move the bad one, okay? I'm going to add 21. So now I have x squared plus 16x. Remember, the 21's over here, so I've got this blank hole that I have in my equation. What's negative 5 plus 21? Now find the good C. What's the good C that goes there? Half the middle squared is 64. Do I just put it here? No, it's an equation. It has to stay balanced, so it's going to go on both sides. Let me just finish this one. Sorry. Factor it. What does that give you? 80. And from there, you should be able to solve it. Okay, I'm going to adjust your homework just a little bit. I'm going to give you half the amount.